Hey guys, in this video we're going to be painting this cute little gnome with the bird. Make sure you have your canvas out and ready. Your paint colors on your plate. We have black, white, red, and this burnt orange color. Just the 4 colors for this one. The easiest way to get the paint on your plate from these little tubs, I find that using a butter knife to just scoop out what you need and scrape. You can then just scrape it off on your plate and then wipe it on a towel. It's a lot faster than taking a brush to each one, because then you have to clean out your brush and it's a little bit more time consuming than just wiping a butter knife clean. And it is important that you clean whatever utensil you use to scoop paint. Keep it clean between, because you don't want to get all the different colors in your different paints. You need to keep your paints looking good so that you can use them for your other projects. All right, so just to get started, usually we always do the background, and once again, we will be doing the background first. I'm just gonna make a nice dark gray. I'm gonna use my medium brush. This big brush would work just as well. Maybe not so much in these little areas. But the color, take a nice big scoop of white and just stir in with quite a bit of black, but definitely more white than black. And get this a nice charcoaly gray. A little darker. Here, that looks good. And this is going to dry a little bit darker on the canvas, but as you can see, it's very gray. It's not quite black, and it's very far away from white, so it's very dark gray. And then just go in and start painting the background. Get that all filled in. And while you work, if you want a little variation in the background instead of just a solid gray, you can take little bits of white as you work while the paint is wet and just kind of blend in little bits of white here and there. Or if you prefer just a solid gray, that's perfectly fine as well. I'll lift it up just so I avoid painting the table. And just go in and make sure all your paint is smoothed out. You don't want big globs. You want to make sure you are getting enough paint on there. You don't want little bits of white showing. So like down here, I'm obviously out of paint. Gotta reload my brush. You don't want all those white little specks of canvas showing. White. I'm blending on wet paint. If it's dry, it's not going to blend. It's long strokes. And I'm painting on a small 8x10 canvas, just for the sake of it fitting in the space, and it's just more economical for me because I paint so many to just paint on the smaller ones. So if you have a bigger canvas, anytime we're mixing up colors, you're gonna want double or 3 times as much paint as I mix up. You don't want to run out of your color halfway through painting a big area. It's very hard to mix and match exactly what you had before. So I'm gonna skip this little edge part so I can go back in with my smaller brush. I just rotate my canvas around, so it's just easier to work. I'm not at an awkward angle, or I'm not resting my hand in wet paint. Smaller brush and get in all these little cracks and crevices. And there, I've got my background all filled in. I'll touch up any little weird spots. This hat got a little funky. Great, I'm gonna clean out my brushes. Next, I'm gonna work on the beard. And we're going to be using grays, a couple different shades. I'm going to start by just adding some more white to my dark gray. I'm going to leave some of my dark gray on my plate though, because I'm going to want to use that and blend it in. I did clean out my brush, not perfect because I'm going to be using grays. I'm going to take a nice scoop of white over in to just a small area. of the dark gray and just lighten up. And it's quite a bit of white in with just a little bit of this dark gray. So we want just this light gray. So compared to the white and compared to the dark gray, it's closer to white than dark gray. I'm just gonna come in here and get this whole beard painted this light gray to start, and then we can layer in some darker grays and some white to give it some variation. So just the base coat is just kind of the mid-tone. And in some of those smaller areas, I will switch to my smaller brush. Now I've got our base coat on. Now I'm gonna start blending in a little bit of my dark gray. And your brush doesn't need to be super clean. Just kind of get the excess off. And a little bit of dark gray. And I'm gonna just kind of swoop in this curve on the left side. A little bit of curve to my stroke. Curve the opposite way, the other side. Get a little bit more dark in here under the glove for a bit more shadow. And I don't have very much paint on my brush at all. And it is blending in because my gray is wet. And up in here is going to be pretty dark. Just kind of dabbing it in, not perfect. Under the nose some, and some streaks down through the middle. So, not cleaning my brush, just scraping excess paint off. Back to my light gray color. Just try to soften that up a little. You don't want to cover it completely. I'm just kind of going back over top with short, little sketchy strokes. And now I'm just going to take white. I didn't clean out my brush, just some white. And sketch in. These are kind of long strokes. And right now it's gonna want to blend with the gray, and that's fine. We can layer on top later to brighten up our white. So some nice long And this, they kind of curve like hair is kind of falling in this direction, more up and down in the middle, and then more curved in the other direction over on this side. So I'm just gonna let that dry for a little bit and blast it with my blow dryer, really, so I don't have to wait. And then I'm gonna just put more white on top, and that won't blend as easily because it will be dry. So I'm gonna hold on to everything so it doesn't blow away. That's dry enough. And take my medium brush back, get that cleaned out. This time I want to make sure I get the gray out because I want to just be using white. I want to really get some bright, lighter spots in his beard. I'm just using white paint. Just kind of brighten it up in this area. Try to keep this little shadow in there. And I don't put a lot of paint on my brush at a time. And always get more. It's hard to get big globs spread out. So I like that. Maybe use my smaller brush to try to get some of these edges a little bit more defined. Small brush, a little bit of white paint, and I can get a little bit more control. Because my medium brush is kind of beat. I get a lot of rough edges because my bristles are ragged. There, I got a nice fluffy beard. Next I'm gonna do the hat. I'm just gonna give it a nice solid coat of just plain red. I'm also gonna paint my little bird red. And the red likely is going to take 2 coats. In between coats, just make sure you let it dry all the way. I use a blow dryer to speed things up. So just plain red. Get the hat filled in. I like to rearrange my canvas. I move it around so it's more comfortable for me to paint. Also, I try to avoid laying my hand in wet paint. The beard is pretty wet. Just make sure you're smoothing out globs. Don't try to get perfect coverage in one coat. It's not going to happen. A lot of people think if they just glob on thicker paint that that's going to save them, a step to not have to do the second coat. Not really the case, and you just end up with weird, chunky paint. So just be patient. Get one coat done nice and thin, spread out globs, and then go back in when it's dry and do another second coat. And it will have much better coverage and look more red. Right now it kind of looks a little pink because a lot of that white from the canvas is showing through still. So I've got one coat on the hat. I'm going to do my bird. I'm gonna use a smaller brush because he's just a little guy. Same color, just red. Go around this little line that's around where it'll be black, and we'll see what we do about a beak. Kind of make him look like a cardinal. It does have a little wing here. I'm gonna paint right over it. The red is pretty transparent, so you can still see your pencil. And if not, it's just like a little swoop shape. I'm pretty sure you can put that back in without being able to see it anymore. So don't stress. Not a hard line. And again, make sure you are getting all your globs smoothed out. Smaller brushes are easier to get globs because the bristles are small, like the width of the brush is short, and it wants to pull up around the outside edge, the paint does. So just get those all smoothed out. And you don't need to be loading up your brush. You don't need much paint at all. Just get a little bit at a time and just get it spread out. After painting, I don't know how many years I've been painting, 4, 5 maybe, over time, and I've done, I don't know, hundreds. You just learn, you just get a good feel for how much paint you need on your brush. It takes time. The more you do it, the better you get. So I'm gonna blow dry my red so that I can go ahead and do a second coat without waiting. Back with my big brush. Let's get all the water out. And we're just going to do another coat. We're gonna put a design on the hat, so being a little streaky really isn't the end of the world because a good portion is going to be covered with black from our design. And the eye will be looking at the design, not the background. Got my hat. Do my little bird. All right, while that's drying, we're going to paint. Oh, I think we got a little He's got a little sleeve there that I forgot about. Sorry. That's gonna need to be painted red. I'll just do the one coat now, and then later I can go back in and get him. So using black, excuse me, I'm gonna paint his mittens and his feet. This little area, yeah, let's go ahead and paint that black also. And then to figure out the beak, we'll see what happens. So I'll just start with this little patch on the cardinal's head. This little mitten. And his little boots. And there's that. Next, we're going to start working on the design on the hat. So I'm going to start by just putting a black stripe to kind of curve my line just a little, right, so that it maybe lines up with the nose. Put my arm in wet paint. I'll fix that in a minute. No, maybe do it right now. It's easier to get it while it's still a little wet. I'm using a damp towel. I just kind of blot it off. make sure your canvas where you're resting your hand is dry. You'll end up transferring paint places that you don't want it. So I'm gonna try to wipe this one off. Kind of doesn't want to. This does get snowflakes though, so I'll get that covered up with little white snowflakes. So I got my first stripe, and it does curve a little. So my next stripe, I'm gonna leave a pretty big space. And again, I want it to curve just slightly. And I'm just gonna go all the way up to right here where it gets little. I'll stop there for now, and then I'll explain the best way to handle that little bit. Okay, so I made it to where it starts to bend a little. And this time I'm gonna kind of go right in this, where it bends on the inside, right in this corner. Touching this black one, I'm gonna swoop it up so I kind of make this triangle shape in that area. And then I can probably fit one more little one coming off the edge. Get this to the, So I'm striped all the way to the top. And now I'm gonna start making triangles. And the points are going to touch the stripe, the line below it. So, triangle. They're like great big shark teeth. And I'm going to paint, not this red one, but right here, I'm gonna paint this one black. I'll leave this one. So it's basically the top triangles all the way across. I'm gonna skip this one. That's just gonna stay a red stripe. And in this space, I'll do the same thing. And paint the top triangles. Again, skip the red. This one I could probably only fit one triangle in. And it's the top triangles, which we don't really see a triangle, but when we paint it, it will create that red one. There, good. So that's gonna be our red stripe. I mean, technically we could maybe fill that little bit in black, but I'm gonna leave it be, call her good. Let's see, let's do a little bit of, now let's do their nose. Let's get the nose filled in. So we want that to be just kind of a pale skin tone. So a little bit of white. And just a teeny tiny bit of this burnt orange. We get this pale, fleshy color. And just get the nose filled in. That. I'm going to do a little bit of shadow on my mitten here. I just take a little bit of my dark gray, I guess more of a highlight than a shadow, a little bit of my dark gray, not much on my brush. Just going to kind of swoop it across this area and down the edge of the thumb. And I'm gonna do the same kind of on the edge of this little mitten here. And across the top of his boots. And if you get too much, that was a little much, just take some black. You can go right over top, blend it a little. I'm gonna paint in a little beak on my bird. I'm gonna paint it white first because the orange isn't really gonna show up on top of that black. So basically we just have to give it a little priming. So just teeny bit of white on your brush. You don't want to end up with a big glob. I'm just gonna kind of mimic this V shape and just fill that in. And that's gonna be his beak. Hopefully, I don't know what I'm doing here. That might be a little big, we'll see. I'm gonna put a little gray dab in for his eye, using my dark gray. So he can have like a little eye. So it's not like obvious, kind of subtle little area there. I'm gonna do some shadowing on his wing. Take a little bit of black and with quite a bit of red. We don't want it to look purple, so just keep adding some red in until it looks more maroon. Burgundy color. And then just a little on your brush. We're gonna come across the wing. Do a little one of this, whoops, too much paint, big old glob. A little one of his feathers and maybe under his belly. Maybe in this little, on the edge of this little head feathers. And if your color is too dark, just take a little bit of regular red and kind of go over top and calm it down. I'm gonna add some white highlights to my hat. So a little bit of white on my little brush. Let's pile a little bit of snow right up here, and I'm just gonna kind of dab it on. A little pile of snow. Let me put a little line in my black. Just kind of sketchy lines. Let's see. I'm gonna dab some snow on the top of my bird's head. Right here on his back. And I'm gonna add some snow to the ground. gonna scribble it in. Here a little. Some kind of pile on the boots. Maybe a little, I'm just gonna put a little swoop on the mitten. A swoop across the top of the nose. Now I'm gonna put snowflakes all over the place. And they can go right on the hat. All on the background. It's a blizzard. Lots of snow. And if you want to use the back end of your brush dipped in white paint, that works too. You do get rounder little dots. My brush is a flat brush, so I don't really get a nice round snowflake. But that's okay. I'm okay with it. Just fill in as many or as few as you like. Get more on his hat. The bird can have some on him. And go ahead and put it on him. You might not be able to see it everywhere, but the snow is going to be on everything, not just kind of around him. He doesn't have like a magic force field protecting him from getting snowed. Got him pretty well dabbed. I'm gonna finish up his little nose. I feel like he does need a little bit more white on there. I'm seeing the black. His little beak. While it's drying, I'm going to put a little shadow of a little bit darker flesh tone under the nose. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of this orange, stir it in with my other color. If it's dried up, it's alright. You just mix white and this color so it's a little bit darker than it was the first time. Mine's a little dried up. And I'm just gonna put a little swoop on the underside of the nose. A little shadow. I'm gonna give my bird his beak. Just using the plain orange, no mixing. Just this plain burnt orange. Just tiny bit on your brush, tiny little beak. And using my dark gray, I'm just gonna put a skinny little line in between. Boy, he's kind of goofy looking. I'm just taking a little bit of black and making his eye look smaller by just kind of covering up a little bit of that gray circle. I think I'm gonna bring my beak out a little bit further because he looks kind of snub-nosed. I think he needs to be a little bit longer. There, that looks a little better. He's cute. Looking around, seeing if anything looks oh man, I just dipped a big old blob of water. Let's see. I think he looks pretty cute. I think he's done. Part of me wants to put a little bit of edge on my hat. I'm gonna do that. Just a little bit of white. Because my red is a little sloppy and I feel like just a quick little thin outline and some white help clean that up a little. Just real thin and sketchy. There, that looks better. He cute. All done. I'm going to sign my name. It's gonna look like snow. I already scribbled over here. So when I scribble my name in, it's gonna look like snow. And we're all done. Hope you enjoyed painting this cute gnome with me. I think he's adorable. Perfect for winter. Perfect for January. Share your paintings with me. I love seeing them. You can post right to my Facebook wall at Paint Willy-Nilly, the at symbol, Paint Willy-Nilly. You can post right there to the wall, or you can just send them in a message to me. And after I collect a few, I'll just post in groups. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, don't mind my pajamas.